It's 2026, and I am Ariel Shaw, founder and president of Southern Crescent Women in Business, and we are back with Women, Wealth, and Entrepreneurship Podcast. It is season 7. I honestly can't believe I've been doing this podcast for 7 seasons. 7 is an amazing number. If you're a believer, it means divine completion. So this is a very, instrumental time. And it's also the year of harvest. That's what we're calling this year, 2026, the year of harvest. So again, we're super, super excited to be back for season 7 of Women, Wealth, and Entrepreneurship. We are available everywhere. Podcasts are available, including Spotify, Apple, Amazon Music, and everywhere. Today we have a very important guest, one of our Southern Crescent men, Mr. Latavius Powell. Latavius, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Latavius is a CEO of CSG Wealth Advisors, and I'm going to let him talk a little bit more about what he does. It's vast because not only is he doing things on the wealth side, but he's also in the sports side as well. So we definitely want to talk about that. Welcome, Latavius.
Thank you for having me. So a little bit about me. I've been a financial planner, so I'm in the wealth management business for over 20 years now. This year will be 21 years. Man,
congratulations.
I'm getting old now.
Age is just a state of mind.
But I started out working with corporate execs, municipalities. I actually had a mentor who told me not to work with professional athletes, and that's exactly what I did for the first several years of my career, just corporate execs, municipalities, kind of built my own way, paid my own way. And I started working with athletes maybe 16 or 17 years ago, and it's been amazing. It's unique, it's rewarding, because a lot of the people that I deal with have never been exposed to finance.
Well, right? Before we do that, tell me, first of all, CSG, what does that stand for? I've never asked you that question.
Interesting, and it's you've never gotten the backstory to that either. So it stands for something different now. But now it stands for Conscious Sports Group. Before it was Compound Sports Group. All right.
Okay.
So actually, when I was at Merrill Lynch, I had an opportunity to meet with some people who were connected to the entertainer Neo, Schaefer Smith.
Okay.
Neo, I want to call his government name, but Neo. And we actually had some meetings and started a company together. So the company was going to be an extension of his entertainment label, which was Compound Entertainment. So we started Compound Sports Group. And, obviously working with entertainers can be a little tough sometimes. So I ended up, kind of taking it over myself and, and changed the name to Conscious Sports Group, which is just a extra level of enlightenment. So and that Conscious brand is on most of the companies I represent. So I have a logistic company called Conscious Logistics. I have a film production company called Conscious Film Production, and just a higher state of awareness in how we do things.
Now, I'm so glad I asked that question. I mean, when I get an opportunity to talk to people, especially in person, I just like to go a little bit deeper than what we normally would do if we're doing something virtual or only have a couple minutes. So interesting to hear that backstory. I never knew that. So CSG Wealth, you guys primarily are focusing, if not exclusively, on sports. Now let's talk about what that looks like.
All right. So most of my clients are in the NFL. I have a few MBA clients. Praying that I get one really big NBA client this year.
Okay.
but most of my clients are in the NFL, and the way that it looks is it's different when you're dealing with someone who has a long time to build wealth, right? So for the typical person, they have working years, 30, 40 years. If you're working years, that's when you accumulate a certain amount of wealth, and you're going to use that wealth to distribute back to yourself for the rest of your life.
Okay.
My clients and my pro sports clients are what we call sudden wealth. So these are people who they don't have the need so much to build or to become rich because their contracts say, here, you're going to get this amount of money, you're going to be rich.
Right now.
That's right now.
Right.
So it's not so much an offense thing for them. It's defense, right? True wealth is about defense. How do you protect your wealth, right? So my job is to come in and show them how do we protect it. And I can go as deep into that as you want. But
Well, no, I mean, first of all, I love the fact that you've made that comparison and just how you differentiate it, because most people are building portfolios that are 25, 30 years, whereas your clients, they have an immediate need. So that makes a huge difference.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have to get right to work. And not only is there an immediate need, but the mistakes are extremely costly. And what I like to tell my guys is, coming out of college, you may have the same financial literacy acuity as a young doctor, a young lawyer. They know about as much as you do about finance, right? Because people go to school and they learn what they learn, right? You're taught, to do what you do, right? If you're a doctor, you learn medicine. If you're, a lawyer, you learn to research. And then I used to do a seminar, it was called Wealth Building for Attorneys, and we go in and they'd introduce me. They say, we're bringing Latavius in to talk about something we know nothing about.
Wow.
And I'm telling you, these are, in my eyes, and in reality, super intelligent people.
Right.
Make no mistake, Yale grads, like super intelligent people. But finance is a very particular knowledge, and it comes with experience. It comes over time, and you could be smart, but it's a difference when it comes to financial literacy acuity.
Absolutely.
So
your clients, are you getting these clients, or is your goal to attract the clients once they are already signed or prior to, or both?
Well, the goal is prior to.
Okay.
Right, and the reason that I like prior to is because, habits form over time, and bad financial habits can form. So if you receive a certain amount of money without guidance, without education, then the first thing you're going to do is, act on your bad habits, right? Which may be, vices, right? We all have vices,
Yeah.
right? And all money does is perpetuate those vices. So you have to really educate yourself before. You have to know the pitfalls before. You have to understand that the money that you have now, it isn't just for now. We should take a multi-generational approach as possible. And look, I have a very difficult job. I'm having to tell 19, 20-year-olds to think multi-generational. Most of them don't even have kids, right? So, but that's what we have to do. We have to immediately think about wealth beyond just what you have. Not you drive this car, you buy, this big house, but how are my kids going to sustain what I've built? And
So how important is it to make sure that there is a relationship, because they may be so young, a relationship with the parents?
Well, that's critical because it's a team approach, right? Parents can be wonderful.
I see the face.
Yeah, parents can be, wonderful helpers, and I've also had some parents that are hindrances, and in terms of finance, right? Your parents are your parents, but sometimes they may need to step out of the finance a little bit, and you'll find that because the young athlete he's actually the one going out doing the work. And if I've been in their life, I've already coached them to the importance of sustaining this wealth. And at that point, they may have more financial literacy. Remember, there's two types of education.
Than their parents.
Right? There's book education and there's the financial literacy. In that case, even though the parents have been living longer, my clients, my sports athletes, may be more financially literate than their parents. And
so wouldn't it make sense to kind of educate both of them, or both the parent and the child at the same time?
Well, yes, but it's difficult, right? Because when you meet someone for the first time, and I'll give you, without giving real examples, I'll tell you experiences. When you meet a family for the first time, it typically starts with the player, then the player has his ideas, or his or her ideas, and the family have their ideas. Everybody's thinking about what's going to happen with this money.
Yeah.
Right. So in reality, you may have a situation where the athlete is thinking about doing all the right things, and you may have a parent that eyeing a new $1 million house.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
New car, new, everything.
Mm.
And those things could be doable depending on that client's actual income. But, the reality is you need to take it slow. Sudden wealth is something where, I tell my clients, you have to get used to just seeing large numbers in your account.
Yeah.
You don't need to see large numbers. And now all the things that
That's
you were.
a whole mindset thing.
Right.
Just because it's there don't mean you need to spend it.
Correct. Which is very difficult for
Right.
any person. That's very
Yeah.
difficult. Not just athletes, for any person. That's very difficult to have been forced to say no all your life because you couldn't afford it or you couldn't have it.
Now everything's available at your fingertips.
Available, accessible, thrown in your face, constantly.
That has to be a challenge, and I'm sure you do an amazing job. Even just, hey, you can use this, but let's push this to the side.
There's a balance. I believe in balance.
Yeah.
Right. So we take actions with our very serious money, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's an amount of money that you're going to put away that's going to be invested. There's an amount that's going to be put away for insurance. And there's always, an amount of money that we create, we kind of create a fake income for my clients, right? You may, you may make 10 million or 15 million a year, but we may create an income for you that's significantly less than that. So that
so they can live off 250,000 versus
yeah, absolutely.
10. Well, that might be an extreme, but
Well, not too extreme, because the reality is that 15 million may be for 4 years. Mm-hmm. Who's to say you get another contract? So we're literally planning a lifetime of wealth and sustainable wealth from contract to contract. Mm-hmm. Right? You can't go any further. The scariest thing that I've had a player say to me, and this was a new guy early in my career, and I went to meet with him. He was one of the first athletes I actually met with. And there was a lot of education needed there. You mentioned parents, and the parent came in. So I met him for the first time at his team hotel. He was traveling to play a different team, traveling a different city.
Yeah.
And as I'm sitting at the dinner table, meeting with his mom, we're at the team hotel, and the jewelry guy just comes, interrupts our meeting.
Oh my God.
just interrupts the meeting, starts showing chains, everything. I'm looking at him, looking at her, So after the guy leaves, I'm thinking I could talk to mom. She's going to help me. He's showing him this ridiculous watch and chain. I won't even say the nickname because you may know him, but it was silly nickname on the chain. And I looked to the mom, thinking she'd be a voice of reason and help. And she just, hey, well, make sure I get these diamond rings. And I saw that there was a lot of not necessarily lack of education, but lack of financial literacy. And that conversation with that young man started. First conversation, hey, Latavius, I know you're going to be my financial planner, and I know you want me to do this and this, but I already know what I'm going to do when I get this next contract, and I already got this car, and I'm already getting this house. And he went through all these things. Guess what? Next contract never came.
Oh, my God.
It never came. So you have to plan contract to contract, and you have to do the best you can with each one. If you're lucky or blessed and get a second contract, and it's big, then you plan off that. But that's as much as you want to plan off of.
That's important. So are you getting in front of these athletes in high school, in college? What's your approach?
So, interesting question. There was, I have to be very careful not to do names here because these guys have become superstars. But a couple of years ago, I would not be the guy who would go into a high school. I've always had respect for families, and I felt like, they need to be kids.
Right.
But there was this one player.
But we got NIL now.
Yeah, it's always changed.
And I know they're debating some things under the Georgia Dome, because I know I sent you something. Sent it to another parent, and they were like, if we can handle everything else, we can handle this too. That was the approach of the parent. I don't think I got any commentary from you, but I basically told them, I said, well, as a parent, if you feel that these kids can handle certain things, then go and speak on behalf
Right.
of
Right.
parents,
Right.
at the Capitol, because that's how it's done
Mm-hmm.
here. They want to know, is they want public input.
Yeah.
That being said, though, NIL is a real thing. And just for our listeners that don't know what NIL is, just quickly talk about what NIL is and then why maybe we're talking now to high school kids.
So NIL stands for name, image, and likeness, and it gives the young players right now, the young college players and some high school players, the ability to earn off of just that, their own name, their own image, and their own likeness. There was a time that if a college athlete, signed his name on a jersey or signed his name on a trading card, then he would be suspended. I think Reggie Bush lost his Heisman. I remember Todd Gurley
Wow.
ended up getting suspended over something very small like that. But even though they couldn't sign their own name or monetize their own name, you walk into your school bookstore and they're selling your jersey. Like I
Right.
literally went to a basketball game to watch a player that I'm talking to, a college player, and everybody around that stadium is wearing his jersey. So
Hmm.
the schools have always monetized,
They've profited.
profited,
I'm gonna say
right?
this, and I'm gonna drop a
Right.
name because I went to Virginia Tech, and I
Mm-hmm.
went to school with Michael Vick.
Mm-hmm.
So because we were a minority and a majority school, we had what you call like a listserv,
Mm-hmm.
meaning we all knew each
Yeah.
other. We all partied together, all that good stuff. So, well, I'll leave that part to the side. But the bottom line is, I know for a fact because most of our guys, I mean, they were drafted to the NFL first round, second, third. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they did really really well. But with that being said, I saw how schools profited
Yeah.
off of
Oh, yeah.
off of athletes. Um, and it's a real thing, and
Yeah.
NIL was not a thing back then.
Mm-hmm.
It was not. So go
Well,
ahead.
it's become a thing where people have never seen young athletes make money, so they have opinions. Oh, these young guys is going to ruin the game. They shouldn't make that type of money. But I'm a big believer of the person doing the work should benefit from the work,
Right.
right? And they are doing the work. And these schools were going out getting as a group doing $1 billion television deals. You'll see the coaches in television commercials, right? Doing the Ford
And the
truck
coaches
commercials.
make a lot of money.
Coaches make a ton of
A
money,
lot
a
of money.
ton of money. So the players have always been taught, just play,
Yeah.
and be thankful for the scholarship, and you should. A scholarship is a wonderful thing. Be thankful for your scholarship and the opportunity to play pro sports. But if someone's making money off my back, I'd like to see a little bit of that money too.
Mm.
And that's what NIL has done. It's opened up the playing field. And you have to understand the schools didn't want it. They fought
I can
tooth and nail
imagine.
all
I'm
the way to
sure.
the Supreme Court. Right? I remember like yesterday when the Supreme Court ruling happened, and no one expected it to happen. The schools
Mhm.
did not expect the Supreme Court to rule for these players to be able to make money off their name, image, and likeness. And when it happened, whew, it went crazy fast.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's just all the money you see these players making now, and there are some players making a lot of money. Right?
Right.
I have several players making in the millions right now in college, annually in college.
Wow.
So I've had high school guys making over $1 million. So there is significant money there. But if the money wasn't there, they wouldn't be paying it out. And you
Yeah.
won't hear the schools complaining about it. It's the people who don't understand all the money that's involved in sports.
Mm.
They're the ones saying, okay, this kid never had anything. Now he's making $1 million.
Mhm.
Well, okay. If he made $1 million, somebody else made $100 million, right? So
Right.
that's right. So
Like that part.
so
Like that 0.01%. Right.
Well, the rev share is still very small. I think the
Yeah.
rev share may be like 3% or something like that of the revenues that's
Mhm.
shared with the athletes. So it's very, very insignificant in terms of the
Right.
work that the athletes are doing.
Especially when there's such wear and tear on the body.
Correct.
So, Latavius, how did you get in this space? Why did you decide to get into wealth advising in the first place? I typically find I like to know people's why, because it's usually something that occurred,
Hmm.
or something or some way that they grew up and they were like, this is where I want to be and this is why.
Yeah.
What's your why?
So some things are just in you, to be honest with you. Finance has always been, and math has always been just in me. I was the kid who, in third grade and in elementary school, I was going to colleges to compete in, in math competitions, right?
All right.
So,
That's my kid.
so,
Okay.
I was the guy who, if I was the kid who was, if I'm in a store and I give someone a certain amount of money, I'm trying to calculate what my change should be, right?
Okay.
So I was also the kid, preteen kid, who saved as just about everything I received, and I was loaning as a preteen. I was lending to adults for interest.
Oh shoot. Oh,
So-
you've been a businessman.
absolutely, absolutely. It's
Now
really
that's
been my life.
funny.
And what's funny is I visited my hometown recently, and
Which is
well, where I grew up is called Early County, Blakely, Georgia. Small town guy,
okay.
country boy. But I visited recently, and I went back into like an old room, and the first piggy bank that I ever had, I found still has money in it and everything.
That
So
is
so
too
old Incredible Hulk,
funny.
like from the '80s Incredible Hulk, right?
Oh,
Little green
right.
Incredible Hulk piggy bank, filled to the brim. So I brought it home with
Wow.
me, and
And now you gave it to one of your kids, I hope.
yeah, well, we're going to go through and we're going to check some of those coins first to make sure, that they don't have significant value above the currency, right? 'Cause
Yeah.
these are older coins.
Right, right.
So yep. So
So what did your parents do? Do you have siblings?
I have siblings. I have an older brother
Okay.
who's a paramedic, paramedic, and I have a younger brother who's a coach.
Okay.
He coached college for a while. Right now, he's coaching high school in Texas, which is the equivalent of college almost. Texas is
Okay.
a big deal
Yeah.
for high school sports. And my mother has owned a daycare center for as long as I can remember. And I didn't grow up in a house with my father, but
Okay.
yeah, so
But your mom was an entrepreneur.
she was.
Okay.
She was.
So yeah, I'm always interested to know because there's always something there.
Yeah. Well, to lend more credit to her, right? Yeah, because I didn't go there. Um, I did see those things from her. I saw sacrifice, because we came from very little. And I watched when my mom decided she didn't want to live in housing or anything like that anymore.
Yeah.
She took a sacrifice and she stopped paying rent, went and lived with her mom for, a year or so, saved her money, and we purchased our first home.
Oh wow,
All
that's
right.
amazing.
I watched my mom go back to college as an older person, go back to
Right.
college and, things that weren't exposed to her younger. But when she could, she went back to college, finished her degree, and started her own business that she's been running since that time. So
That shapes you,
absolutely,
Latavius.
absolutely. Sorry I missed that, but yeah.
No, that's a big deal because I'm always, anytime I have a conversation, I have to I want to dig a little deeper.
Right.
And so I think I met. Is it your younger brother, older brother?
You met my older brother.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, and your mom at the awards. Okay, wow.
Yep.
So she was a single mother.
Yep.
How do you think now that we're talking about it, how has that shaped you? Even with what you're doing now and even talking to other families.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been big for talking to other families because I know what things can be missed.
Right.
Right. So and I've had to shape my own understanding of when things were missed. Right. So for instance, that there was a time where if I was a young athlete and she couldn't make it to different events, I held resentment. But as a parent myself and as an older person now, I definitely make sure I make every event. But that's the financial freedom that I gave myself to be able to make every event for my kids. But in hindsight, and looking back, I realized, okay, well, look, if she has to work, she can't be there, right? She has to
Right.
provide. She's a single parent, and she has
Yeah.
to provide. And those are the things that can get lost. And even understanding the way that parents won't talk about financial struggles, right? There can be financial struggles and they won't talk about it. And I'll never forget, I had a young player who was drafted, and I knew that he was, okay financially. And he was young. He wasn't drafted high, but it was enough where he should have been able to help out a little bit. And sometimes the players, the parents, especially the single parents, cannot share their real finances. Now the player doesn't know when they struggle, or the kid doesn't know when they struggle. And kids, young athletes, can be unintentionally selfish.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is they made a little bit of money. They're out partying with their buddies. They may spend money in the club. They may spend money on different things and never take the time to really think about what's happening back home, because what they see is mama always made it. Right. Mama good. Right. So it took a phone call to me like, hey, Latavius, just in casual conversation. She wasn't asking for anything. Like, hey, I need washer dryer. Right. Washer and dryer's messing up. Like, your son is like, well, I don't want to burden him. And, like, no, he could do this. Right. So I had to, one, teach that young athlete, hey, pay more attention to what's going on back home. Right. While you're out hanging out and you could spend $5,000-$10,000 in a nightclub. Right. That could have taken care of some things back home. Right. Wow. But in his mind, he never thought that his mom needed help in certain ways, because she always portrayed that she just had it.
Let me ask you this, because in working with families, and I mean, we're all business people, so, we get advice on putting people, put your family on payroll, or, things of that sort. When you're talking and coming up with structures and whatever your plan is for these athletes, is there ever a conversation on creating maybe a family entity where, because we understand tax laws in the United States, and the reality of it is honestly made for entrepreneurs, which we've said that on multiple occasions, but formatting it in a way where it is a business, but it also takes care of, mom is also an employee or whatever the case is. So then it's structured a way where you don't have to have those awkward conversations, but things are just done. Yeah.
The structure is very important, particularly for NIL. Because the NIL dollars that these young athletes are receiving is 1099 income, right? So they're not withholding taxes. They're sending these kids 1099s at the end of the year. And I think that in a couple of years, that's going to be a story to be told, because I would say about 75 to 80% are blowing it.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Structure a business. Create a nonprofit. Donate dollars. There are ways to do it.
So when I can, the players that I can access, we do that. So and I'll give a great example of a guy that I'm just starting to work with, and he should be a first round pick in this year's NFL draft. But I just met with him for the first time last year, so he had 2 years of NIL, and in 2024 I think he made about $250,000, right? And then last year he made like $750,000. But so he hasn't filed his 2025 taxes yet, but he filed his 2024 with someone who didn't understand his situation. Someone, I think one of his coaches that referred to him. So for $250,000, this kid cut a check to the IRS. At least he saved the money and had the money to pay. That's good. But he cut a check to the IRS for like $80,000, right? So I gave him a real life example of a player, and it just so happened it was a player he knew who made about the same amount. And I showed him how, we tracked everything throughout the year, put a P&L together, made his mom an employee, just tracked
some real estate. There's just so many things to be done.
Well, we tracked all of his travel expenses. Now that your mom's an employee, if she has to come see you play, right, those are additional deductions. That's travel expense.
Right.
So by the time all those deductions were taken, this kid paid like $13,000 in taxes. Off $250,000 as opposed to the 80.
Because the financial literacy is great, and I get that, but we're dealing with real wealth here, and so sometimes, we have to understand the system that we're in, and the American system is designed, especially in this administration, for entrepreneurs, and that is the bottom line. So. I applaud everything you're doing.
Hmm.
And, I know you have way more to come. Talk about film because we hadn't even gotten to that.
So, well, what she's referring to is, we do invest in film projects also. So we have three film projects that will be released this year. Uh,
2026.
Yep, 2026.
Can we name them?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
One of which will be, it's called Kill Code. So it's kind of a dystopian sci-fi action thriller with starring Tyrese Gibson, Harvey Keitel, Frank Grillo. And then we have The Florist, which will be coming out. And it stars Dennis Quaid and a French actor that, you may or may not know, but he was a great French actor back in the day. I loved him in The Professional, which is Jean Reno.
Okay.
The French actor, and I forget this young lady's name. I think Sky Katz is a young lady who played one of our younger. Well, she's not so young anymore. She's an adult now, but
Yeah.
she's a Disney star. She was on
Okay.
That's So Raven and things like that. So,
Oh, okay.
um,
Okay.
and I didn't realize how big she was. My son saw one of the flyers, and of
Yeah.
all the people on
That's
that list, that's the
yeah,
one.
because
He's
that's
like,
why,
hey,
like, I think my daughter knows her. Yeah.
And then lastly, later this year, we'll be releasing. I partnered with Highland Film Group and Jessica Alba's production company also. I forget the name of her production, but her production company also.
Yeah.
And we did a movie called The Mark, which stars Jessica Alba.
Right,
And we
right.
filmed that in Australia in October.
Okay.
And we're in post production on that now, but it will be released this year.
So all of your films, those three that you just mentioned, are where? So Australia was one. Where were the others filmed? Were they filmed in the U.S.?
Yeah, they were filmed in the U.S.
Okay.
Kill Code was filmed in Mississippi.
Okay.
We took advantage of a very good tax rebate there. Right?
Mm.
Some states, which is good, like Georgia has what's called the tax credit, which is you
Mhm.
spend the dollars and you'll get a tax credit, and then in
Mhm.
order to monetize that, you have to go and kind of sell off the tax credit.
Okay.
Mississippi had what's called a tax rebate, where you spend the dollars in the local community, and as you pay the dollars out, they actually rebate you back and cut you a check, right?
Wow.
For those dollars. So, you know,
Interesting. Okay.
oh yeah. So on a $7 million spend, that ended up being over $2 million in a tax credit, in a tax rebate.
Wow.
And so anywhere we film is going to have a significant tax benefit. So that was Mississippi. The next one, The Florist. This wasn't such a great benefit, but it was a benefit for other reasons, was New Jersey. So we filmed The
Okay.
Florist in New Jersey. And then the largest of those productions was The Mark. It was filmed in Australia. And I think our tax credit for that project ended up being about $6 million. So
Okay.
on a $20 million budget, we got a $6 million tax credit.
Okay.
So
All right. Well, that's pretty good. Now, how did you get into the film space?
just like in most spaces, I have to learn different industries
Mm-hmm.
because of the clientele that I represent. Everybody's pitching, constantly pitching things to them, which means in order for me to be of good help to them, I have to be able to have a vast knowledge and be able to do due diligence on different things for them. So film was something that I would instantly say no to. Right.
Right.
Right. So, and I did for years, and then what happened was one of my guys, he was with the Cincinnati Bengals at the time, and someone had approached a group of him and a group of his teammates about a project. And I think it was one of Tyler Perry's last projects
Okay.
with Lionsgate. And I reviewed it. I couldn't tell him to do it because, with a good conscience, I can't say make this investment because my knowledge wasn't, to the point where I could say this is good or bad.
Right.
So after having to say no to a potential Tyler Perry project, that hurt to the gut, right? That hurt. So, what I did was took a class. I was part of an inaugural class, actually, at what used to be Pinewood Studios. It was Pinewood at the time. And I took a class that was from an investor standpoint. So we went in, we worked on a script, we did casting. We learned how to properly invest in film from A to Z.
Yeah.
How to build relationships with the distributors, how to market a film before you even start spending the money. If you can get pre-sales, how to get pre-sales, and kind of sure up as much profit as you can on the pre-sale side. All those things we learned through this class, and I came back and took that into that business. So
Okay.
any business that my clients deal with, I have taken the time to really make myself
Really understand.
to understand and make myself an expert in that space.
Because I would automatically say, I mean, unless the business or the movie does well, that is a risk.
Well,
Yeah.
let me propose this to you. If you're let's say any budget, let's say a $7 million budget movie, right? If you're going to spend $7 million on a movie, yes, there is significant risk. You want to know what makes it less risky? Finance plan. Right now, you come in and you look at a $7 million budget and you put a finance plan around it. Maybe you pre-sell about $4 million, right?
Okay.
You know that on a $7 million spend, if you're in a state that has a significant tax credit, 30% tax credit, you know off $7 million you're getting 2.1 back in the form of a tax credit,
Yeah.
right? That just significantly lowered your risk if you have pre-sales, which is basically to say, okay, we'll give you a contract for this amount, but we won't pay you until you deliver this film. So then you have to go out, and that's more finance, right? You have to go out and get the loan, but that loan comes with a contract that says, when you deliver this film, we're paying you a certain amount. So typically what would happen is you would sell many of your foreign territories and maybe hold your domestic. And so sell your foreign to shore up, your sales. You have your tax credit, and then you keep your domestic for potential significant profit if the movie does well. If the movie doesn't do well, and guess what? The tax credit was a significant help. That limits your risk significantly.
How do you think we're faring as it relates to Georgia? Because I know you mentioned Pinewood, and Pinewood now was then Trilith or Marvel or
Trilith,
whatever it is. And then I believe now that whole studio left overseas.
Wow.
Because I don't know if you were aware of that.
Yeah, I know they were overseas.
Yeah. So how do you think? I mean, just because y'all are, I know you've been to Cannes. I know we haven't mentioned Cannes, France, but you're seeing things from a global perspective as it relates to film. Where do you think we are in Georgia?
So I think Georgia is well positioned. Okay. The issue that you tend to see in Georgia is not so much the credit's great. Okay. But the issue that you tend to see is there's not enough support staff. And I think that's starting to change now. For instance, I thought what Pinewood started to do was train like the grips, I guess you call it, the camera, all the different components of film that are little talked about.
Yeah.
Right? They started training people behind the scenes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
In a lot of cases, in order to make a film, you still had to bring in, that type of talent from LA and from New York. So
yeah, I think we've gotten better.
Yeah.
That I know. Just even having an office space over there in Trilith area, in Rome, matter of fact, all like the whole film industry would come there every time.
Well, they were the example, though. They were the example. That was when I saw it built out. Right, so they took the studio and built everything around it so that if you came in, you had everything there. But every place doesn't have such a luxury. Right, it's really hard. Like when you film.
So the Cathy family, Dan Cathy set. He set it in motion. He was a definitely good example of. Actually putting Georgia on the map. Georgia Entertainment, and you know what? And that might be why Georgia Entertainment's doing so much with Trilith.
Small world.
Because I'm getting emails from them now. They actually started the end of last year in doing some these activations at Trilith. And I was like, okay.
Interesting story. You mentioned Dan Cathy. In that class that I told you about, I was a part of that inaugural class. First night, right? It's evening classes. First night, this guy had on this little suit or whatever. He comes in and starts handing out. Well, he handed out business cards. Well, he handed out Chick-fil-A entree to Chick-fil-A little gift card. I was like, oh well. I'm sitting there talking to this guy the whole time. It turns out like it's Dan Cathy, the CEO of Chick-fil-A.
Right.
He is a huge film enthusiast. He will sit there and talk to you about film all day, all night. He's a huge film enthusiast. So I think he is a big part of, the growth in the state of Georgia from a film and film investment standpoint. And Georgia's doing very well. Like if you really pay attention, to the movies and to the especially the shows. For some reason, Georgia's done very well with shows like television shows, reality shows, things like that.
Okay.
No, they are being filmed in Georgia, at a very significant rate. Because there's an additional credit if you just
The
throw
new
that peach.
Hollywood.
There's an additional tax benefit. I think there's another 10% just for throwing that Georgia peach
At the
end
of your thing.
So you look for it.
Yep. Yep.
So.
So, we could actually go another hour just even talking about film. What's next for you, and how do the people reach you?
So next for me is I'm focused on making a significant impact in this NIL space.
Mm-hmm.
Like I really see great potential, but I also see potential catastrophe. Great potential in the sense of you have young people, and that's why there's a lot of jealousy. You have young 18, 19, 20-year-olds making hundreds and thousands and $1 million+ if they are trained properly and if they learn the right things. When you talk about true wealth is about consistency and time, right? When you look at Warren Buffett's wealth, I think he's worth about $160 billion now. And what people don't understand is of his $160 billion net worth, $156 billion of it was built after the age of 65. Right? He spent a lifetime amassing that wealth.
Yeah.
Now you have 18, 19-year-olds who are probably making more than even Warren Buffett made at that age.
Right.
If you remember when LeBron James entered the NFL, sorry LeBron, but entered the NBA,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
A lot of people forget this, but he's an amazing story, amazing financial story, amazing philanthropic story, amazing athlete also, but amazing story. Think the world of him. But when he entered the NBA, he was on the cover of Fortune magazine. Everyone forgets this, standing next to Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett took an interest in just mentoring him. And you talk about building out a family business and a family, network.
Yeah.
It's exactly what he did, right? You look at where his friends that were with him now are. Now, they had to be serious about business and do real things. But you look at Rich Paul, you look at Mav. All these people have been with him from the very beginning. And look at where Rich, what can you say? He's on top of the world right now.
Yeah.
Now he had to go out and he had to do the work. He had to learn that agent business himself. But it started with the grace of my network, my friend, my buddy is about to be the number 1 pick in the NBA. We're going to prepare ourselves to handle this in the right way for the long term. And 90% of the people have no such plan. It's just happening to them.
Well, they need to call Latavius.
There you go.
Latavius, how do they reach you?
Well, I don't know if I could just give out my number,
Well,
but,
you can your website, however you want to.
So the website, I'm simple. It's just my name, So if you're on social media, just search my name, Latavius Powell, Latavius Powell. Website is csgwealth.com. And if you want to call me, 404-645-2006. So I'm happy. I'm here. I'm happy to help. I love to help people. I have a wealth of knowledge that I'm happy to share.
Awesome. It has been a pleasure. Thank you again. It is, again, season 7 of Women, Wealth, and Entrepreneurship. I am Ariel Shaw, and I'm officially signing off. Thank you.